In the United States, the golden years are supposed to be a time of rest. But for seniors living alone, they are often the most vulnerable. Between 2016 and 2018, a predator stalked the retirement communities of North Texas. He targeted the frail, the rich, the lonely. No one noticed because no one was looking. At least 22 elderly women were smothered to death in their own beds. Their deaths were written off as heart attacks, old age, or bad luck. The killer believed he was invincible. That is, until he knocked on the wrong door. Until he met a 91-year-old grandmother who refused to stay dead. This is the true story of Mary Bartel, the grandmother who took down a serial killer. Plano, Texas, March 19, 2018. Preston Place Retirement Community. Mary Annis Bartel was not the typical frail victim this killer was used to. At 91 years old, Mary was a force of nature. Son Rick Bartel said, "She went to Mass every day. She always tried to help people. She was generous, kind, and loving." Born in 1927, Mary had lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and the birth of the digital age. She was a retired teacher and a guidance counselor. She was a mother of 6, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. While other nonagenarians slowed down, Mary was just getting started. On this particular morning, Mary woke up at 4:30 a.m. She took her blood pressure, she went for her daily walk around the property. She drove herself. Yes, drove to the 6:30 a.m. church mass. She returned to her first-floor apartment to write an email. She was vibrant, she was alert, and she had a memory like a steel trap. But someone was watching her. Someone had noticed the silver sedan in the parking lot. Someone who knew that the security in these luxury retirement homes was a joke. His name was Billy Chemermere. To look at him, you wouldn't run. 47 years old, a former home health aide, a legal immigrant from Kenya who had slipped into American society without raising alarms. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like staff. Chemermere had a simple playbook. He would walk into upscale senior living facilities, places where residents left their doors unlocked because it felt safe. He wore green rubber gloves. He carried a pillow. He would knock. If a woman answered, he would force his way in. He smothered them with a pillow, quick, quiet, and clean. Then he would steal their jewelry, their cash, their credit cards. He would walk out, and the death would be ruled natural causes. Before March 2018, 7 of Mary's neighbors had died under mysterious circumstances. Jewelry was missing. Doors were ajar. But police and paramedics told the families she was old. It was her time. But Billy Chemermere didn't know Mary Bartel. He thought he was walking into the apartment of just another old woman. He was wrong. It was mid-morning. Mary was at her computer. Then came the knock. Mary Bartel said, "I opened the door and I saw this man with his green rubber gloves on. I tried to push back, but I'm 91 years old and he is young and muscular." Before she could scream, the man pushed his way inside. He shoved her onto the bed. He grabbed a pillow and pressed it down on her face. Mary Bartel said, "I felt as though I could not breathe. I thought I would die. I am not afraid to die, but I didn't want to die that way." Mary fought. She reached for a medical alert button around her neck. It was her lifeline. A single press would send help. Her fingers clawed for the button. But the weight of the man, the weight of the pillow was too much. Her vision went dark. Her hand fell to the side. She lost consciousness. Billy Chemermere looked down at the elderly woman. No movement. No breathing. He had done this over a dozen times. He was sure she was dead. He snatched her jewelry from the nightstand and walked out, leaving the door slightly ajar. But Mary Bartel wasn't dead. While Kemmermere fled the parking lot in his silver Nissan Altima, Mary's body fought a silent war for survival. Mary Bartel was supposed to be at her exercise class. When she didn't show up, her workout buddy, a friend who knew Mary's discipline, grew worried. She walked to Mary's apartment. The door was already open. That was the first red flag. She found Mary unconscious on the bed, unresponsive, covered in sweat, but alive. Mary was rushed to the hospital. Doctors and nurses worked frantically. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was a police officer. This is the part of the story that is hard to believe. The officer leaned over Mary's bed. Officer said, "Ma'am, you're 91 years old. Are you sure you didn't just fall and hit your head?" He suggested Mary was confused. He suggested that perhaps her friends had stolen the jewelry, or that she had misplaced it. Her sons arrived at the hospital, furious. Son said, "They thought she might have fallen, that her friends came in and maybe stole her jewelry. We thought it was the most ridiculous thing we ever heard." They demanded a detective. They demanded someone who would listen. Enter Detective Paul Martinez. "Mrs. Bartel, what did he take? Try to remember." Mary Bartel: "He took my jewelry and the cash from my purse. There were 2 $50 bills, 3 20s, and 4 10s. Detective Martinez looked up from his notepad. He had been working cases for years. He knew that a 91-year-old with a concussion doesn't remember the exact denominations of the cash in her purse unless she is telling the truth. We got a problem here, because somebody is attacking elderly women, and we have been calling them natural deaths. Martinez didn't just treat Mary as a victim. He treated her as a witness. He asked the complex, "Has anyone seen a stranger?" One resident's son spoke up. A few days earlier, he had seen a suspicious man loitering in the parking lot. Being cautious, the son had done something that would save lives. He wrote down the license plate number. They ran the plate. A silver Nissan Altima, registered to a man named Billy Chemirmir in Dallas. The next morning, less than 24 hours after Mary Bartel was smothered, detectives staked out Chemirmir's apartment. They watched him walk to a dumpster. He was holding a distinct red wooden jewelry box with Asian markings. He tossed it in the trash. Plano police moved in. They arrested Billy Chemirmir right there in the parking lot. They fished the jewelry box out of the trash. Inside, they found legal papers belonging to a woman named Lou Thee Harris. Officers rushed to Lou Thee Harris's home. They found the 81-year-old woman dead in her bedroom. A pillow lay next to her. Lipstick was smeared on the pillowcase, a sign of suffocation. The dam had broken. Police departments across Texas started reviewing hundreds of unattended deaths. The man who thought he could hide in plain sight, who counted on the world ignoring the elderly, was caught because one 91-year-old grandmother refused to be forgotten. But this story doesn't have a perfect Hollywood ending. For Mary Bartel, surviving the attack came at a cost. The trauma haunted her. The stress of knowing she had faced a serial killer weighed on her. Her health, once so vibrant, deteriorated rapidly. She began slowing down. We expected her to move on, but it was hard to watch. 3 months later, she fell and broke her hip. The woman who had driven herself to Mass at 6:30 a.m. was now confined to a nursing home. She had to record a video deposition for the trial, knowing she might not live long enough to testify in person. Here is where the story turns from tragedy to grace. Mary Bartel was a deeply religious woman. She was a lector, a Eucharistic minister. And as she lay in her bed, fading from this world, she did something that shocked even her own children. It was still somewhat shocking to hear her say she forgave Billy Chemirmir and that she prayed for him every day. She said, Not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. She didn't have hatred in her heart. She had something stronger: purpose. In November 2019, the Plano Police Department held a ceremony. They presented Mary Bartel with the Citizen Hero Award. They thanked her for her crystal clear memory. They thanked her for her bravery. But really, they were thanking her for showing them that the natural causes they had ignored were actually crimes. Mary Bartel died on February 27th, 2020. She was 92 years old, just days shy of her 93rd birthday. Sun said, "She lived 91 years without taking down a serial killer, so that wasn't the ultimate meaning of her life. We were proud that she played an important role there." Billy Chemirmir was convicted of capital murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But in a twist of fate as dark as his crimes, Chemirmir did not die of old age. In September 2023, he was found murdered in his prison cell, killed by his cellmate. He entered the homes of the elderly seeking easy prey. He left in a body bag, having been stopped by a woman born before the Great Depression. Mary Bartel didn't have a gun. She didn't have martial arts training. She had a sharp mind, a routine, and friends who noticed when she was missing. In a world of serial killers and true crime podcasts, we often look for vigilantes. But the real heroes are the ones who survive long enough to tell the truth. The ones who remember the license plate. The ones who forgive the unforgivable. Mary Bartel proved that you are never too old to fight back, and that sometimes the sweetest victory is living long enough to see justice done. She was 91 years old, and she saved lives.